Hello and welcome back to Traffic Talks and to another late episode. I am so sorry. Life has just been throwing me for loop after loop. I thought I'd get time to do this on my days off that I took and everything just went out the window. So here we are, better late than never. I sincerely apologize and I'm going to try and do better going forward. I also was on my Instagram and just, uploading, and I fell off the wagon as well. So I'm going to try and get back into a decent foundation setup and then go from there. But enough of that. There's this episode and next week's episode, which I can't believe it. Time flies. So yeah, that is what it is. And because each week has a different theme, this week's theme in the nostalgia umbrella is books, movies, and series. And I'm going to tackle it one topic at a time. So for books, I actually enjoyed going to a library. When we were younger, we had one fairly close nearby. And I actually found my brother's library card not too long ago. It was orange. And I'm just like, this brings back so many memories because I genuinely loved going to the library. I don't know if it was the experience of just being out of the house because we were very on the go kids, we had a lot of extracurriculars. I did ballet, I did recorder, I did gymnastics, I did the athletics, so sprinting, running, those types of stuff. And then also winter sports, I did netball and hockey. I think I did hockey more primary school and netball more high school, but there was always a lot of extracurriculars. So going to a quiet place to just sit down and read and have a bit of silence was always a fun thing. And back in the day, Roald Dahl books were the thing that I absolutely loved. And also one of my favorites was actually Alice in Wonderland. We had a big yellow hardcover in the library at our school, and I loved that one. It was the best. But back in the day, that was my jam. I loved fantasy books, I love fun books, and these days I prefer to read biographies or self-help, self-discovery kind of books. And I wasn't a very avid reader. I didn't glide through books because, as I said, we were busy children. But I did prefer more picture books, if I can put it that way, like the Where's Waldo series or any kind of comic book style book, for lack of a better term. One thing we always did was get the newspaper on a Sunday, and it is now an animated series called Super Strikers, but back in the day it used to be in the Sunday Times in the comic strip section, and I used to love that. We'd get the newspaper and the first thing I do is grab that comic section and read all the funnies. The best thing was that every once in a while they would actually give a full comic book of the Super Strikers, and I actually have a few of them still. Like, I love that section. So books are something that actually makes me very nostalgic, and especially when books have become movies, that is something I actually enjoy. I know for a fact a friend of mine told me this. The movie Red, White and Blue that everyone is going on about was actually a book first, and now they've turned it into a movie for, I think, Amazon Prime, if I'm not mistaken. So things like that, Heartstopper, that is actually something that was a graphic novel, if I'm not mistaken, comic graphic novel, something like that, and they've now turned it into a Netflix series. So it's still amazing to me that these things that we've read, that we've had to imagine, have now come to life and we can watch it. And that is something that is actually so cool, and it does make me nostalgic, especially the One Piece Netflix series that dropped, because I still haven't seen it. I do plan on seeing it. I did watch the Barbie movie. Oh, it was awesome. But I digress. The One Piece series, they've recently turned into a live action series for Netflix, and I was actually like, oh, is this character there? Is this quirk about this person still there? Like, what is going on? And my family was just like, no. And I'm just like, these are things that are vital to characters. These are things we love about the characters, whether it's the anime series, whether it's the manga series. Like, these are things that are iconic to the character. How dare you strip it away? And I'm just like, let me first watch before I make judgments. But these are the things that we remember. These things have a nostalgic feeling to us, especially because they are like classic lines we always come back to. I mean, for modern people, or kids rather, things like funny vines or iconic sayings, these things will feel nostalgic to them once they get older. For us, it's more of this book had this classic line in and we repeat it to this day. And that's something that I think will never become obsolete in terms of just understanding what nostalgia is. And that's why I think books for me will always be one that I will always go back to. I have a mini library basically in my room, and I always still prefer physical books over ebooks. This has always been the great debate. I think audiobooks are a brilliant middle ground because you can almost envision it in your mind as you listen to it. But ebooks, I will never bash them because I think they do open a lot of avenues for people. And I do personally enjoy the occasional ebook, but my preference is still a physical book. That's just me. And comics. I love comics. I don't think I will ever be a collector, but I do like the idea of comics, like visuals. Those are always fun. The next section of nostalgia for me is movies. I have mentioned a lot of movies in the past because they just kind of play out to the nostalgic feeling, whether it's creating a prequel for a series we watched when we were kids or a new trilogy like Star Wars. Like, that is insane to me because you had the series, then you had the prequel, and now you have like the sequels of the trilogy that had a prequel. Like, it's all over the place. So that is really, really cool. But where I wanted to go with this in particular was the music from these movies. Like, when I think of Seal's Kiss from a Rose, I don't just think of Seal. I think of the Batman movie, where that song was iconic to that movie. I always think of White Chicks, which is one of my ultimate favorite movies. And I think of the song Satisfaction because I just imagine Terry Crews with a whistle in his mouth dancing rave style to that song. Like, oh my word, it's insane. And then Beyonce's iconic Crazy in Love song when they're doing the battle dance in the movie. Like, these things are so amazing and they just give you that nostalgic feeling. So like, listening to songs can trigger different things for people. And I think that is awesome because you can also have things that are currently going on that will one day bring you back to this feeling. And for me, I think I did mention this in the previous section, but Heartstopper is an incredible series. I absolutely loved it. I got recommended it by a friend and I was reminded of it when they advertised season 2. So I just decided to binge everything. And it was so worth it. It didn't take me too long, but every single song in Heartstopper was perfectly timed, was perfectly in tune. I just want the entire albums of songs from both seasons because it was that incredible. And I mean, young people of today don't understand what it was like to not know the song was a hit until you got the CD and you listened to it in its entirety. Because for anyone who still remembers, Musica used to be a shop and they had this tower in the middle with earphones attached. And they'd have CDs on top of one another and the album next to it. And you could click an album and you could like see the back of the CD and like pick a song to listen to and be like, do I like this song? Don't I like the song? That was how you trialed the different songs and said, oh, do I like it? Don't I? And that was the thing. And now you simply click on your phone, you go to Spotify, you search for it, boom, bam, you got it. It is so different, but it's things like this that kind of make you not just nostalgic, but make you grateful. Because a lot of times it's like the world has become very convenient for things that used to be very inconvenient. And I, for one, am very grateful for the convenience of things because life is hard enough and people don't need to make it harder, yet they do. So for me to have Spotify is something I'm very grateful for. And also because not only does it provide music that we know and love, but it also provides things like this, a podcast where we can get other people's opinions, we can broaden our horizons, we can learn new things from people that we feel we can relate to. And I think that is something that will never be a bad thing. Being able to relate to other humans and be in touch with them in some way or another. Going out and being with people is not hard for me per se, but it's just something I don't do often enough. And even now, while I'm on holiday, it's a weird thing to have to try and find a balance between spending time on the podcast because I truly want to do that, finding time to relax, finding time to watch some series that I've been meaning to catch up with, watch some movies I've been meaning to catch up with, spend time with family, spend time with friends, but still be, a productive human being and actually do some things I've been meaning to tick off my lists, which is hard because you kind of get overwhelmed, and we luckily do have certain things that we watch as a family, so I don't need to feel kind of out of the loop. For example, Cobra Kai. We generally watch that as a family when it drops in December, my father included, which is fun. They understood what the whole Karate Kid series meant because they understood it. It wasn't maybe their youth, but it was ours, and as parents they could just be like, yeah, just watch that movie, and they'd be okay with the content. And now it's a whole new way of living, and they just like, oh, okay, characters look familiar, but there's a next generation, and it's a whole thing. And I think it's so cool because it's really, really, I think for them, fun to see how we've grown up, and now something that's nostalgic to us is being played in a new format. And for them to see that, I think is really cool. The fact that some series is still fine to watch with parents, even though they've made it more mature, more adult, more complex, is something that I think is cool. Because for me, I'm very iffy on watching certain things with my parents. Just like, I don't want to watch someone get pulverized, or that is just not fun. So there are certain series I will watch with myself or with my siblings versus watching it with my parents. And that's just a thing because I know it's not what they like. For example, Stranger Things. My mother doesn't like weird things, so my siblings know, just don't watch that when mom's in the vicinity, because apparently there's like some really creepy looking things, and that's cool. For me in particular, Umbrella Academy is one of those ones I will be very iffy to watch with my mother. My father's like, oh, okay, cool. My mom just doesn't like the weird things, like the supernatural things, the weird things, the creepy things. She's just like, no, that's creepy. Ooh, that's one series we did watch. We watched Wednesday together. That was awesome. Like, I particularly watched it with my mom, and my brother joined me to watch it whenever I was watching. And that was really, really fun. For something that was like a series when she was younger, which obviously she didn't watch, but like there was movies when we were younger, and she always like, yeah, that weird family. I'm like, yes, I love it. And then the series came out. The animation also dropped 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really, really awesome. And I was just, there's a lot of series, and the way you watch it can also bring nostalgia around, but I think it's changed, especially in terms of how we do things. I mean, back in the day you had to actually go hire a VHS tape, whereas now you just stream it. You had to go hire a DVD. Now you just stream it. Or if you are someone with a old DVD machine, Blu-ray machine, even a PS or Xbox, I think, you can watch your old DVDs, which is awesome. Oh, that's what they did. Netflix made a series called Blockbuster, which I haven't really seen, but it's basically like your usual Mr. Video, Mr. DVD, whichever one you had in your area. That's basically that, which is awesome because it kind of takes you back to how you used to have to do things. And one thing I do love from the olden days, if I can put it that way, is cassette tapes and CDs. Things have evolved. The same way VHS tapes became DVDs, cassettes became CDs, which has evolved into playlists on Spotify, which is a whole other thing. And a lot of artists have actually played on the fact that vinyls are so good with the older generation that the younger generation have actually followed in the footsteps and have actually wanted vinyls or records, whichever word you want to use. And that has actually endeared a lot of modern artists to older generations, which I think is absolutely awesome because personally I do love records. I think I put an old picture up of it, of my Volcano machine, and it does everything. It's like a literal all-in-one. It plays cassette tapes, it plays CDs, it has a radio, it does Bluetooth, it has memory card slots, a USB slot, an aux cable slot, and CDs. I think I mentioned that. Yeah. Basically everything you could need, it does it. And that's awesome. So, you got options for everything. And I think people doing that and being able to pull out old vinyls from their parents and play it on a modern machine is really cool because you never know. You just really, really never know what will be the next thing. And having something that's compatible with everything is really, really nice. So I'm very grateful because it was actually a gift. So yeah. Ooh, that's another thing. One thing that they've also done, like this machine that does everything, they've also tried to make older shows more compatible and kind of include everything in it for the modern era. I mean, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers special that they had on Netflix is one of the biggest examples I can think of. That was my childhood. And now that they've actually made it more modern, updated it, and given the characters more backstory in the gaps that you could just fill in was awesome. Cobra Kai, I mentioned, is already a spin-off. The iCarly reboot is 3 seasons strong. So that should just tell you how much they are making money off of these older shows that have been rebooted or redone. And the thing is, it can be hit or miss, but like the fact that they've done it in the first place just goes to show that they can pick and choose what they want to reboot, and I'm here for it. I can't say that I like every single one, but like the attempt is there, and I will not be mad at them for trying to make that money. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. As much as these different ways of doing things like the cassette tapes and the CDs or the reboots of these shows have given me a nostalgic feeling, or being able to look through old magazines, comic books, newspaper clippings, those do all bring me nostalgic feelings. And I do love the fact that as we grow older, we can kind of learn and know how things are made and how things come to be, especially things like movies or music. Because for me, I've always been like, not loving scary movies or horror movies. Definitely not a fan. I prefer thrillers or psychological thrillers that just like keep you in suspense. As I've grown, I've been able to see the undertones and the themes of the things used in movies and understand the message that they're trying to actually portray, even if they do it in a scary way. Like Soylent Green. That movie is a brilliant example of it, because we generally don't understand the theme of a movie until we have more context of human life and different words that we didn't know the meaning of, and we're just like, oh, that's what that means. Or like, oh, this is what privilege looks like in this context, and understand how we can apply that to life now and be like, oh, it's kind of like a satire of that. Okay, cool. Even movies that are that old can sometimes even still apply to the modern day. And Heritage Day actually did, I think, a 30-year anniversary or something like that of the movie Sarafina with Leleti Khumalo and Whoopi Goldberg. That movie still is relevant even today, and that to me blows my mind. Even a movie like Legally Blonde, that movie is incredible, and Legally Blonde too, love both of them. They still have undertones that are like subtle, especially when it comes to the douchey boyfriend in the first movie. I mean, even him just using that pet name on all the girls. Like, not many people pick it up, but it's that same thing that kind of just is like, oh, it's that move. Okay, understood. There's certain things you learn as you grow, and being able to understand it as you get older is a brilliant thing, because it shows you've matured, you've learned something, you've understood things, and you can still watch it with that same nostalgia, but understand like, oh, so this movie shaped me to be the way I am, and maybe that's a good thing. All that to say that, yes, these things make me nostalgic today, and they might still make me nostalgic in the future, and maybe it's different things that make me nostalgic in the future. But that will be okay when it happens, because it means I've discovered new things, I've learned things, I've been able to finally carve out time to watch more things so that I can have that. Because I do know for a fact, I feel like I stopped nostalgia in 2018 for some reason, and hopefully one day I will have future nostalgia of the things I've missed. Because I know memes are a thing, and like I generally jumped off the bandwagon and was like, what does this mean? But I'm catching up slowly but surely. Speaking of future nostalgia and nostalgia of the future, this week's song of the week is off Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia album, the Moonlight Edition, which, yes, there's a difference. because the Moonlight edition has this week's Song of the Week, which is Prisoner by Miley Cyrus and features Dua Lipa. Honestly, this is one of the best songs I could have picked because Hannah Montana is played by Miley Cyrus and it's a classic Disney show. It brings you nostalgia. I actually referenced different Hannah Montana songs and I'm always like quoting different episodes and things. So like that is nostalgia in and of itself. And Dua Lipa is an incredible artist to the point that you will always just be like, oh, her, she's amazing. Like she will bring nostalgia, which is why I think the album is aptly named. And also, the song itself, Prisoner, is sampled by Olivia Newton-John's song Physical. And Olivia Newton-John is iconic in the Grease movie, which, once again, just brings out more nostalgia. So it's like layers. Like, the song is layers. Just, I can't say enough, and I'm rambling, so I'm gonna shut up. Yeah, Prisoner, which is such a fun song to just even listen to and blast on whatever device you choose. So you go out and do that. You also go out and you have a good time whenever you listen to this. Enjoy the rest of your week. Keep being a better being, and I will see you in the next episode. Love you. Bye.